It was a typical rainy Friday evening in the small town of Pineville. The town, known for its quiet streets and friendly community, rarely saw much excitement. Yet tonight would be different. Johnny Russo, a 20-year-old pizza delivery driver for Tony's Pizzeria, pulled up to 125 Elm Street. He hopped out of his car, juggling a stack of pizza boxes and a six-pack of soda. As he approached the door, he noticed it was slightly ajar. With a cautious knock, he called out, "Pizza delivery!" No answer. Johnny pushed the door open a bit more, peering into the dimly lit interior. "Hello? Is anyone home?" He stepped inside, a chill running down his spine. The house was eerily quiet. He set the pizzas down on a table in the foyer and decided to explore further. "Mr. Smith," he called, recalling the name on the order. The only response was the soft hum of an air conditioner. As Johnny ventured deeper into the house, he noticed a trail of what appeared to be red sauce leading down the hallway. His heart pounding, he followed the trail to the living room. What he saw next would haunt him forever. There, sprawled on the carpet, was Mr. Smith, lifeless and surrounded by a pool of blood. The room was in disarray, with furniture overturned and shattered glass everywhere. In a panic, Johnny fumbled for his phone and dialed 911. "Hello? I think there's been a murder. I'm at 125 Elm Street. Please, hurry." Detective Sarah Blake, a seasoned investigator with the Pineville Police Department, arrived on the scene shortly after the 911 call. As she walked through the front door, she was greeted by the chaotic sight of crime scene tape, officers bustling about, and the nervous pizza delivery boy sitting on the porch. "Johnny Russo?" she asked, approaching him. He nodded, his face pale. "I'm Detective Blake. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" Johnny recounted the events, his voice trembling. "I was delivering pizzas to this address. The door was open, and when I went inside, I found Mr. Smith dead." "Did you touch anything?" she inquired. "No, just the pizzas and the table in the foyer," he replied. "Good. Stay here. I'll have more questions for you later," she said, patting him on the shoulder before heading inside. Detective Blake surveyed the scene, noting the overturned furniture and broken glass. She knelt beside the body of Mr. Smith, observing the multiple stab wounds. "This was a brutal attack," she murmured to herself. Her eyes then caught the trail of red sauce leading from the front door to the living room. "Interesting. Detective," called Officer Martinez, one of her colleagues. "We found a knife in the kitchen sink. Looks like it might be the murder weapon." "Bag it and send it to the lab for prints," she instructed. She then turned her attention to the rest of the house, looking for any clues that might indicate a motive or suspect. She found a smashed family photo on the mantelpiece and a laptop that had been left on, displaying an email from an unknown sender with the subject line, "We need to talk." Looks like Mr. Smith was into something deep, she thought, taking note of the email. The next morning, Detective Blake met with her team at the police station. "We need to dig into Mr. Smith's background. Let's find out who he was in contact with and if he had any enemies." Her team set to work, combing through Mr. Smith's phone records, emails, and financial transactions. They discovered that Mr. Smith was an accountant at a local firm and had recently been working on a high-profile case involving embezzlement. "Looks like Mr. Smith might have been targeted because of his work," suggested Officer Martinez. "Maybe," replied Blake. "But let's not jump to conclusions. I want to know more about this high-profile case and who stood to lose if Mr. Smith uncovered something." As the day went on, more information came to light. Mr. Smith had been investigating a prominent businessman, Charles Denton, who was suspected of siphoning funds from his company. Denton had a lot to lose if Smith's investigation went public. Detective Blake decided to pay Charles Denton a visit. She arrived at his lavish mansion on the outskirts of Pineville, where she was greeted by Denton's butler. "Mr. Denton is expecting you," he said, leading her to a grand sitting room. Denton, a tall, imposing man in his late 50s, stood to greet her. "Detective Blake, what can I do for you?" "I have some questions regarding the murder of Richard Smith," she stated, getting straight to the point. I understand he was investigating you for embezzlement. Denton's face remained impassive. Yes, Mr. Smith was conducting an audit of my company's finances, but I assure you I had no reason to harm him. My lawyers were handling the matter. Can you account for your whereabouts last night? She asked. I was hosting a charity event at the Pineville Country Club, Denton replied smoothly. There are plenty of witnesses who can vouch for me. Blake noted his confidence, but wasn't convinced. We'll be verifying that. In the meantime, I suggest you stay available for further questioning. Back at the station, forensic results had come in. The knife found in the sink had Smith's blood on it, but no clear fingerprints. However, something else caught Detective Blake's eye. The red sauce trail leading from the front door to the living room wasn't just pizza sauce. It was a specific brand used exclusively by Tony's Pizzeria. Johnny, do you know if anyone else was supposed to deliver pizzas to 125 Elm Street last night? Blake asked when she brought him back in for questioning. Johnny shook his head. No, I was the only one on duty for that area. But now that you mention it, there was something odd. When I got back to the pizzeria after the delivery, I noticed we were short on our special sauce. I thought I might have miscounted earlier. Interesting, Blake said. I need to speak with your boss. Tony DeLuca, the owner of Tony's Pizzeria, welcomed Detective Blake into his office. Detective, how can I help you? Blake explained the situation, and Tony listened carefully. Johnny is a good kid, always reliable. But if you're saying someone used our special sauce to create a trail at the crime scene, that's very troubling. Do you keep a record of who has access to the kitchen and ingredients? She asked. Yes, only my trusted employees and I have access. But we did have a break-in a couple of nights ago. Nothing major was stolen, just some ingredients. I didn't think much of it at the time. Why didn't you report it? Blake inquired. I didn't want to cause a fuss over some missing sauce and cheese, Tony admitted. Now I wish I had. Detective Blake reviewed the security footage from the pizzeria's break-in. The grainy video showed a hooded figure sneaking into the kitchen and taking several containers of sauce. Although the face was obscured, the figure's build and movements were familiar. Run a check on former employees, she instructed Officer Martinez. See if anyone matches this build. A few hours later, Martinez returned with a file. Detective, we found a match. Tony fired a delivery driver named Mark Evans a few months ago for theft. He fits the build from the video. Let's bring him in, Blake said. Mark Evans was apprehended at his apartment. Under interrogation, he initially denied any involvement. But the evidence was mounting. The security footage, his history with the pizzeria, and a witness who had seen him near Elm Street on the night of the murder all pointed to his guilt. Finally, under the pressure, Mark broke down. All right, I did it. But it wasn't supposed to go that far. I just wanted to scare Smith into dropping the case against Denton. Denton paid me to intimidate him, not to kill him. So Denton is involved, Blake said, her suspicions confirmed. With Mark's confession, Detective Blake had enough to arrest Charles Denton. She and her team arrived at his mansion with a warrant. Denton, still confident, tried to brush them off. But when faced with the evidence and Mark's testimony, his demeanor changed. You have no proof that I intended for Smith to be killed, Denton argued. We have enough to charge you with conspiracy and obstruction of justice, Blake replied. Your plan to intimidate Smith backfired, and now you're going to pay the price. The trial of Charles Denton was a media sensation. With the overwhelming evidence against him, he was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and sentenced to life in prison. Mark Evans, in exchange for his testimony, received a reduced sentence, but still faced significant jail time. Johnny Russo returned to his job at Tony's Pizzeria, now a local hero for his role in uncovering the crime. Pineville slowly returned to its quiet, peaceful existence, though the memory of that fateful night lingered. Detective Sarah Blake, satisfied with the resolution, continued her work, always ready for the next case. The Pepperoni puzzle had been solved, but she knew that in her line of work, there were always more mysteries waiting to be unraveled.